Madam Chair, you can start the meeting.
Thank you. All right. Christopher Doman,
Present.
Julie Evans,
Present.
Holly Freitas,
Here.
Alex Oberlich, absent. Anita Rankin,
Present.
Siri Trumbull is absent. Ilya Sloan,
Present.
and Susan Aiken is present. Did everyone have a chance to read the minutes from the last meeting?
Yes.
Are there any corrections? All right, would somebody give me a motion to accept those minutes?
Motion.
Thank
To
you.
accept.
Anita moves to accept the minutes.
Accept the minutes. Yes.
Second,
Ilya. Seconds.
Ilya seconds. So the minutes are accepted. We have now on the agenda a call to the audience. Is there anybody who wants to say anything?
Madam Chair, we need to do a roll call for the minutes, please.
We have to do a roll call to accept the minutes.
Yes, Madam Chair.
All right. Let's just go right around.
It's been motion, it's seconded, so you need to do a roll call.
Ilya,
Accept.
Julie,
Accept.
Anita,
Accept.
Holly,
Accept.
Christopher,
Accept.
Susan accepts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And for the record, the meeting started at 6:08 p.m.
I think we can move on now. Michael, do you have any other observations?
No,
Or
Madam Chair.
request? We can move right ahead to the reviews. Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. So the first one is to review the rehabilitation of the J. Knox Corbett House, 180 North Main Avenue. And I'm sorry, I wasn't present when all of you guys at first appeared, so go right ahead with that presentation.
All right, I'm Arthur Stables from BWS Architects. You know where we live.
Yes.
And with me is Brandon Willman. He is one of our project coordinators, architects in training. He's going to run the machine to show the pictures. So if Brandon, you'll share your screen.
I need the host to give me permission, please.
Oh yeah, let me do that, please. Give me a minute. Brandon. I'll make you the co-host. So Brandon, I'm making you the co-host now so you can share your screen.
Wonderful, thank you.
So you're all familiar with the Corbett House. Go next. And we've been asked by the Tucson Museum of Art to help in the rehabilitation of the house after the fire, as well as some revisions and renovations to the interior and a little bit of exterior work. As you can see on the south and the west sides of the house, the fire destroyed a good bit of the attic framing, the roof framing. So that portion of the roof will be removed in its entirety and restructured, and then new and or salvaged clay tile will be reinstalled, as well as at this point reinstalling the clay tile along the back side of the house where it is now shingles. That's the major work that you will see along this elevation. We're also going to restore the wood railings that occur in the two arches beside the entry arch. Those are both dilapidated and falling apart. Next slide. This just shows some of the damage to the house, and you can see the burnt ends of the rafters and damage along the soffits. So we'll be addressing all those issues as part of our rehabilitation work. Next slide. This is the back side of the house as it sits now. You can see salvage tile. There's various areas of the roof where they've been working that have been, the tile has been removed and stored here in the site. We don't know if we'll have enough, but I think I've been able to match it from a Ludovici tile. And usually the roofers tell us we will probably damage or break 20% of the tiles when we salvage them. So that's, hopefully we can accommodate that with matching tiles. And we will be replacing this wooden stair. I'm sorry, go back, Brandon. We'll be replacing this wooden stair at the back that goes to the sleeping porch. It's very dilapidated as well. All right. This just shows the general site plan. We're not doing any work except, as I've described, on the house for the roofs and then at the back patio. Next. For the interiors, the interest of the Tucson Museum is to provide more uses for this house. And the way we'll approach it is as a small community center that they can lease out for educational meetings, conferences, not anything very large because it's not a very big space, but we're renovating the bedrooms along the south side into new toilets, and then a groomsman and a bridesmaids dressing rooms, which can serve also as dressing and green rooms for other events. And at the north side, we will be doing minor renovations to the kitchen, basically replacing one counter, and then turning an existing storeroom into a new bathroom. And the same at the south side, this is a new multi-person toilet. So those are the major renovations on the interior. It suffered minor cosmetic damage from the fire, mainly water damage, you know, ceiling, plaster, and stuff like that. So we will be restoring all the plaster and the woodwork and to its original condition. Next. These are just the second floor plan. We're not doing much work. We will be replacing most of the roof in the attic. That's on the right side. The southwest corner of the building is totally destroyed at the roof level. It is just a black hole up there. And then there's other damage along the edge of the west side. So we will be restoring that and just cleaning up the whole attic space. We'll be doing new insulation so that the house is more efficient thermally. Next, please. These are just the exterior elevations. This in the upper right corner, we will be developing that patio to serve as a place that can have meetings. So we will be removing the existing low walls and replacing them with new masonry walls with an arch and a gate, so that we can provide security for the new patio. Next, please. This is a larger elevation on the upper left of the new gate and wall. It will all be stuccoed in the same texture and color to match the house. So we can, when we have events, we'll be able to open the gates and serve the new patio. Next, please. This is a rendering of the proposed patio. We'll have some exterior lighting. The elevations, there are different floor levels in the patio now, so it is not universally accessible to persons that are differently abled. And so we will be removing the existing patio slabs and bringing it all to the same level. Basically, the finished floor will be at the level of the existing entries and putting down concrete pavers. And then you can see the new wall and gate on the left. We'll be improving utilities throughout the house, new air conditioning systems, new lighting, and new sewer and bathrooms. And we will also be sprinkling the building, providing fire sprinklers.
Hmm.
And I believe that's it. There may be one more rendering. Next. Yeah. So this is looking from the parking lot. That will be remain unchanged, the existing parking that is to the east. So it will be used for events at this center if when such occur. And that's basically the extent of our work for the house. Are there any questions or comments? Anyone?
Glad to see the repairs moving forward, particularly after
Yes.
the storms that we've had.
Yes. Well, and the museum has engaged with Kittle Construction, whom you're familiar with. He helped me renovate the Clement Fountain over at the plaza at the courthouse. And he also helped them build the new addition to the Tucson Museum, the lovely addition that's on the north side. So he is a very good contractor, and he is also very good with these fussy historic interventions that we'll be participating in. So I think we're really happy to have him on board.
Mhm. It looks wonderful from the renderings, and this is Anita. And the back gate is lovely with the museum symbol there on it.
Yes.
It's like a lot of thought has been put into this, just real small. And you may not even be in charge of this, but the front awnings, I hope they're going to be
We are looking at replacing those with the
good.
like material, green stripes.
Oh,
And
wonderful.
we'll be repainting a lot of the house because there's fire damage everywhere. There's
Yeah.
one window that we have to replace entirely.
Mhm,
So various work like that to bring it back to its former condition.
mhm.
Because it is a lovely home and it was so sad.
It was sad, and it is beautiful. And what's your timeline on this? Do you have one
I
yet?
can't really address that. Chris may be able to.
Mhm.
I could put him on the spot.
Yeah. So our goal is to have everything complete by November of next year.
Mhm.
And that's reasonable.
Mhm.
So yeah, we're really pleased with it. We were happy to be engaged by the museum, and we've been working back and forth with them. It's been pretty collaborative, and so it's turned into a nice project.
I've got a quick question.
Of course.
I was wondering, how do you, well, with the storm in mind, that 100-year storm that just came through, how do you specify or the details for a tile roof like that for the next 100 years? Is there anything you can do to prepare for it, or do you just proceed
No.
business as usual?
Yeah, you really can't, because the mission tiles are either secured by wire or by a couple of nails. And I've never seen any other way to do it. And it's so interesting, that storm was terrible. At our office, it did no damage, but we had a pile of hail the size of, I don't know, probably a yard in diameter behind our cistern. So it was very localized in the damage. But no, I don't think there's any way to deal with mission tile.
I noticed that some houses that had south-facing terracotta tile roofs were lifted up, and then others weren't in the same area. And I was just wondering if there was any sort of consideration for how you deal with that kind of bird stop detail or even the underlayment.
Well, the underlayment we'll do a good peel and stick, high temperature, water resistant underlayment. And that protects the interior of the house, but there's not really much to do with the mission tile. I mean, it's just what it is. And you can't even walk on.
One more question about the courtyard. I was looking at the rendering that you showed. And it looks so much bigger than you ever sort of expect them to when you see those renderings. Are those columns square? I thought they were square. They look rectangular in that image. Are you changing the columns?
No.
I believe aren't they more squarish?
Well, I think they're square. I think it's just this perspective.
that what it
Because
is?
we're sort of standing in a corner and it's a little deceiving.
So
Because the
I was-
courtyard's not that big either.
Can you remind us what the dates are for these various things? Because that's a much later detail, and so is I guess the porch, the sleeping porch.
I don't remember when those were put on because the sleeping porch is really not much of our scope at all.
Yeah.
So I haven't paid much attention to it.
Well, we know it's a good long time because
Oh, yeah.
all the houses in this area had sleeping porches, and so in the post-cooling era, they were no longer necessary in quite the same
Right.
way.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
looking at those columns, and it looks like more of a 1950s block in the column than is typical.
Well, it could be just the way we've rendered it too.
But they'll be stuccoed all.
You know,
right?
everything's stuccoed, and we're not changing any of the facades like that. We're really just addressing the ground level.
Are there any other questions or comments?
Will that sleeping porch have terracotta tile too, or is that going to be
Yes.
some other kind of roofing?
Right now, the intent is to have terracotta on the whole building
Gotcha.
because the old pictures seem to represent that.
Gotcha.
And it was typical in the neighborhood with these types of houses. The Steinfeld mansion was the same architect apparently, and that's all mission tile everywhere.
Thank you.
I have a
Anything
question. Thank you for the presentation. The stair that you mentioned that's dilapidated and to be replaced, will that look like the
Yes.
way we see it now?
It will generally look like it. It's going to be steel though, because wood does not hold up in this climate. But we will make it in the same configuration and the same color.
Okay.
It's a safety hazard right now. There is a hatch down into the basement, basically in front of this third window on the right side. We're going to replace that with more of a watertight hatch and replace the stair that goes into the basement, which is treacherous. It's so steep, you just want to fall forward. So we're going to replace that because all the mechanical equipment, the HVAC equipment will be in the basement.
I'm also curious how you arrived at the design for the wrought iron gate. If there's a precedent.
That's our architects working back and forth. I did incorporate the Tucson Museum logo, but it's reminiscent of other gates in the neighborhood. It's pretty plain.
Okay, so that's based on precedent in the neighborhood.
Yeah, and it's transparent so that evildoers can't be, invisible from the parking lot.
Thank you.
Juhi, did you have concerns about that?
I was more just curious, but I guess if they're I live in the neighborhood, but I'm not super familiar with the precedent of this particular gate design. But I agree with what you're describing, that it's there's not much attention brought to the design itself.
Yeah, it's pretty plain. And we wanted to have the logo in there because that does not occur anywhere else.
Yeah, that's sort of the one thing that I noticed too, though. The logo is super contemporary. And
It is.
the wrought iron gates in the neighborhood are not. I can understand why they wanted it there, but that's the one element that strikes me as somewhat jarring.
Okay, well, let us consider that. Because what I'm just sitting here thinking is we could do a very plain gate that's the continuance of the bottom and actually like put the logos on the wall next to the gate
You could.
or something like that.
Yeah, you could.
Because that would read more like a sconce. But let us take that back and consider it. I appreciate that.
Does the Corbett House itself have a logo?
No, not to my knowledge.
No.
I would think that the logo will show up more if it's painted or some metal type of structure on the wall than it will
I agree.
on
I
the
agree.
gate. So I think
Yeah.
that's a consideration. And I do understand why the museum would want a logo just to identify the building.
Yeah,
But
because this will be the
you know,
entry for most of, if they have an event or a meeting or conference, this would be how you would access the building.
mhm.
So, but that's a good question. I think we'll take that back.
I made a comment at a meeting about how painted signs are actually exist often in the neighborhood. So that'd be a nice way to think about connecting it to kind of public buildings and from a domestic use to a more kind of public use.
Okay, yeah.
Are there any further questions, comments?
I think something that would make that logo in the wrought iron more convincing is if there are examples of logos within wrought iron in that manner.
No,
They're
I mean,
not.
there's not. But I understand your concerns, and I think that's it. I like the idea of actually pulling them out of the gate. So I will speak to the architects back home.
Well, will they identify the house from the back then? I assume they need some identification.
I
back
don't
there.
know
If
that
that's
right
gonna be
now.
if that's gonna be the main entrance, more or less now, they may need some sort of identification of what this building is.
They may.
Yeah.
That's not our call,
Okay.
but the museum is hearing this, so.
Oh, good. Yeah, I know in the past, when I first moved here, I had a hard time finding that house. But I did, of course, but I think it would be nice if it was identified. It's so beautiful and identified as part of the museum as well.
Yeah, well, heretofore, it was part of the tour.
Oh, yeah.
That's your ticket and you could go to this, which I loved. I think this is an awesome house.
Yes.
But understood.
Yeah.
Further thoughts? All right. Would someone like to propose a motion?
Madam Chair, this is a courtesy review. It's not agendized for an action to be taken. It's just for feedback to
Ah,
applicant. So
okay.
no motion is required.
All right. Very good.
And we acknowledge your comments, so thank you for that.
All right. I think that takes care of this project.
We're going to take off if that's okay.
Thank you so much for your
Well,
presentation.
thank you for your time. Nice to see everyone.
Looks
Thank
good,
you.
guys.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks, Brandon.
Oh, Madam Chair, I see that Alex joined the meeting, but I don't know what time he joined.
At 6:11.
Thank you.
Michael?
Yes, I got it
Okay, I noted it.
noted.
All right. Let's move on then to 350 North Main Avenue. That's the Wilder residence. And Bob Vent, are you going to make that presentation?
Yes, I'm all set.
Yeah.
I have a PowerPoint that we'll need to.
Yeah, Madam Chair, before I give Bob to share his screen, the reason we brought this to you, this is a project that had been reviewed by you, reviewed by Plans Review Subcommittee, and even there was a director's decision on it. But Bob, when they went to the field for measuring and things like that, they found out that the height as approved at that time was slightly different from what actually is. And so they were asking for a kind of minor review for this little adjustment that was going to be done on the height and any other thing that they found. Now, given that a lot of time to get people to do the minor review takes a little bit of time, this review was coming up. And so we in the Historic Preservation Office felt that it would just be a good thing for Bob to come so that all of you can give your input to him and us, rather than getting one person to come for a minor review. So we as staff are just looking for what you think about that high differential and any other differential that Bob is going to present to you here. And then we'll go back to the office and talk with the director and decide what to do. So that's basically what we are here today for. I believe I captured it well, but if not, you can do more in your presentation. I want to make you the co-host right now.
Okay. Sure. So I'd be ready to share. Am I able to share screen here? Let's try.
Yeah, you should. I made you the co-host.
All right. Thank you. All right. We go here. Let me go here. And I want to do slideshow from beginning. Yeah. Here. There we go. Okay. So this is the room addition at Joe and Peggy Wilder's home, 350 North Main. And as you know, this we've been before you twice with this project in the past. Joe and Peggy are not the sort of client to rush into anything. They think things over very deeply and have they've given this a lot of thought. They've thought it all over. And so we've of course, this is pretty much the same presentation we had last summer. We were in front of you last June, actually. The Wilder house is on North Main Avenue. It's actually, their house was built in 1993, and it is a non-contributing house. It's right here in this block of Main. It's kind of a little zigzag house. So it's a non-contributor, but it is compatible, certainly. Here again is the location. We're adding on a room to the very far east, actually on the east end of the house, where in fact it's not actually visible from the public way. There again, existing house. Now we had thought about doing a little casita here, but they've put that one on hold. I should have actually modified this slide to take that off, because that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the room addition at the end of the house. Context photos, what's around us, street elevations. Of course, that's all just background. This is the area of the proposed addition, filling in this outdoor space on the east end of their current home. West side of the house, north side of the house. And indeed, this is an adobe wall existing that we propose to leave in place and build actually a new addition within that adobe as sort of a shell. I guess the adobe stays as a shell. What we found, as Michael mentioned, when we came to measure the house for final working drawings, we were just double checking, field measuring. None of this is changing. This is the same room. But what we found was that the height of this wall, which was labeled on the old drawings from 1993 as 15 foot 8 inches above grade, was actually 16 foot 2 inches above grade. So in order to maintain the same relationship of our addition to the existing house, we have shown in these drawings lifting our roof up by 6 inches. So that's the difference. We were down 6 inches before, and we're still down 6 inches, but the total change in height is a +6 for the height of this wall. Now, this wall, as you might remember, is actually corrugated metal wall on metal studs, and it comes down inside the existing adobe garden wall, which isn't strong enough to carry the new building, but we'll use it as essentially an enclosure. So that is one. Now, there's one other little change we needed to talk to you about. Joe and Peggy, after thinking it over again, in particular, Joe felt that he did not want to build this porch extension that we had shown to you last year. We had shown the porch extending to the end of the courtyard. And what Joe is wanting now is to stop the porch, or actually have the porch, leave the porch as it is now, stopping at the end of the existing house and building essentially a little masonry wall with a pair of French doors and a transom on the south wall of this room addition. And he wanted a really thick wall, a 16-inch thick wall, similar to the 16-inch thick adobe of the rest of the house. So it doesn't change the east elevation, doesn't change the north elevation, but it would change the south elevation. However, that particular side of the house is not visible from any of the surrounding properties or the street, because it's here on the courtyard side of their home. And they're shielded from all sides by garden walls or other buildings that have no windows. There's actually quite a tall garden wall here that obscures this from view from the east. So it would be a completely internal change that nobody would notice except for Joe and Peggy, who've decided they would rather not have the porch. So that's a change. Also, there's the height of this metal wall, which we're asking to raise 6 inches. Now that does make it, 6 inches taller relative to the existing adobe. So you have a little bit more masonry, a little bit more metal to masonry proportionally. And then on the south wall, we would do a smooth integral color plaster over actually an insulating concrete block material that we've used called the Perfect Block. It's an ICF, insulating concrete form, where you put up the wall, fill the hollow cavities within this foam block with a pea gravel grout, high strength grout, reinforcing steel, and then we stucco it with an earth color stucco, integral color. So it looks more like a mud adobe than it does cement block. And this is the south side of their house. There's the existing adobe wall to remain. This is the area in which we propose to build that room. And actually the new wall, the south wall, that would be ICF, Perfect Block, would begin at that corner and continue across, and we would have a simple pair of French doors and a transom on this south wall. So those are the changes. There's the raising the height of the building by 6 inches to align with the existing, and omitting the porch that we had asked for permission to build last year. And I think that sums up my presentation. And I'll go back to this sheet because it does show the revised north and east elevations and the revised south, basically removing the porch.
I have a question, Bob, just a point of information. So the new wall, the south-facing wall, will be flush with the current wall, and there will be no articulation to make a distinction between the new and the old. But the materials will be different.
Yeah, it would be a stuccoed, modern day masonry insulating, and we would join them actually at the corner. We'd take the plaster finish on the new wall and roll it in so that it would have a little reveal or a little recess. And then the existing adobe wall is not plastered, it's exposed adobe.
Right.
So, and that would stay exposed as it is. So you'd have a plastered masonry wall, a thick wall, the same thickness as the adobe, but it is a change of material from adobe to insulating concrete block.
Yeah, and my question is, would it be preferable to have some distinction between the two by either recessing the new wall just a little bit, rather than running them flush together?
Yeah, that could be done. That could certainly be done. We can hold it back. Although I was thinking that since one of them is plastered and one is not, that it's actually easier to roll the plaster into a corner rather than, if you bring it into the side of the wall, it's harder to stop the plaster. It would be a messier detail. It's easier actually to have them align and then tuck the plaster in as it turns the corner. So I think that the differentiation would be in the material of the wall. One's exposed adobe, the other is stuccoed, and where they come together, there's a recess, but it's a subtle recess. It wouldn't be an exaggerated recess. It would be basically a rounded plaster corner that simply rolls back into this recess of probably an inch deep.
Are there other questions or comments? Christopher?
Yeah, I was looking at the drawings, Bob, and I'm trying to figure out the height of the wall in relationship, the new wall in relationship to that porch roof. And I'm looking at the north elevation, and it looks like it tucks, to my eye, it looks like it tucks under the roof. And then when I look at another one, it looks like it goes over significantly.
But it does rise up above the roof about 2 feet. What's happening in this elevation, Christopher, is you're seeing the roof of the house continue all the way to the north, which is here. So it's one big shed roof.
Gotcha.
And so we're coming along, we're leveling off, and we're leveling off at a height of 3'6" above the roof. So we have that guardrail height as required for rooftop mechanical equipment. So our parapet is achieving that safety factor for us. And this is actually a little gate that would open to allow a workman to step onto the roof and not have to climb over the parapet. So if you'd set your ladder up here, you'd walk up, open the gate, and step onto the roof. And actually, this is a safety feature that Joe requested because he himself fell from his roof while maintaining his cooler and suffered serious injuries. As Susan would know, she's right across the street. He actually broke his neck and has recovered, thankfully. And the other thing that occurred when Joe fell and was injured, the x-rays they took when they were setting his bones revealed spots on his lungs that turned out to be cancer. So then they treated the cancer and he survived. And frankly, if he hadn't fallen from his roof, he probably would have died by now of cancer. So it was an ironic and sort of a happy accident. But yeah, so that wall would actually be a little higher than the shed roof, where it would step down. This distance here would step down.
Okay. But with that in mind, would it make sense to build in a ladder for safety?
Oh, well, you could do that. It's not a code requirement, but that could be done. I know there is, if the rule is, if you have rooftop mechanical within 10 feet of the edge of a roof, you need a 42-inch high rail.
Yeah.
And so what we've done is the cooler is on this end. It's an evaporative cooler. It sits up here on the north end. And we come 10 feet over and we have the wall at 42 inches above the roof surface. But yeah, I think at this point we were thinking that it's just simply a ladder that you could set beside the house, and then this little gate opens and lets the workmen onto the roof.
Yeah, just thinking about the previous accident. Two more quick
Exactly.
questions. So that roof just slopes to the east, and then there's a downspout of some sort. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. There's a downspout, and that's the earlier. Let me go to the framing plans. Let's see. Or did I load them on? There we go. Okay. So here's actually, I'm going to zoom in. Can I zoom on this? Yeah, I can zoom. All right, here's a roof plan. We actually have a constant roof slope from west to east, and we're building up little crickets and diverting the water to the center. Here's the evap cooler. Here's that little access gate for maintenance. And then the downspout, would be centered on that wall, which is as it was shown last year as well. And it would come down and let out into the garden.
And it just jogs over that bump between the two walls.
It would, yep, it would offset and come down over that little offset, yeah, which is about, it would end up being, once we get it with our wall sheathing, it's about a 7-inch bump out that would offset, I should say. Offset sounds better than a bump out.
Great, thank you.
Sure. Oops, sorry.
Other questions or comments?
I think the idea of a ladder, since it's exactly what happened is the ladder shifted as Joe was stepping down from the roof in the front, is an excellent solution. And we're aging, so having something stable is really important.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of amazing that what Joe's been through, but he wouldn't be around if he hadn't have been
Absolutely.
Yeah, and actually his daughter Elizabeth is the one who sought out the treatment that finally helped him recover. She got online and researched, and she found a program at the MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston. It was an experimental, actually immunotherapy for cancer, because he had stage 3 lung cancer, and that's the end, right? But that was, I think, 6-7 years ago, and here he is. So thank goodness.
Yes, and we are so glad.
Yeah, such a great guy.
Other comments or questions? I have a question to Michael. Michael, do we need to take any action on this?
Yes, we do, Madam Chair. Because it's technically a revision to the plan. So even though it's a minor revision, we really need to do, because if we did a minor review, we will still get a recommendation from a representative of your board. So I definitely need a motion from you.
All right. would somebody care to frame a motion?
I can try. I
Thank you.
propose that we accept this submission in its entirety.
Is there a second? Ilya seconds. So Christopher proposes that we accept this plan in its entirety. Ilya seconds. All in favor? Let me just go through the roll. Ilya? Yes.
Aye.
Christopher, of course. Aye. Julie?
Aye.
Holly?
Aye.
Alex? Is Alex on?
He is. Unmute, Alex, you have to unmute your speaker. Let me text him.
Anita?
Aye.
Serious absence. So, and as soon as Holly, I called on you. Yes? Okay. I've got my list here, but it doesn't match up to the images.
Okay, I just unmuted, so I vote aye.
Very good. Thank you. It's unanimous. Thank you, Bob.
So
you're
it's
welcome.
unanimous 8-0 with one person absent.
Correct.
All right, great. Well, thanks very much. So I guess the finding is it's a minor review then, is that right, Michael?
Bob, I'll go back to the office and we talk about it. That's why we're bringing it here. Once you have this is a big step forward.
Okay, great. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Bob.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
We have another item on the agenda, staff updates. Michael?
I do not have any update to provide at this point in time, Madam Chair. Just as you know, when projects come up or they contact us for things, we're going to get in touch with you. At this point in time, I am not working on any specific project in Air Presidio. I don't think Jody is working on any. But as soon as it comes up, we are going to contact you or here so to get the review going.
Thank you. Then
The only thing that I probably can update you on is with the new, you must have heard about the new state law that was passed HB 2720 concerning the additional dwelling unit by the state, which the city is supposed to abide by that law on or before January of 2025. So Planning and Development Services have been organizing meetings to discuss the impact of that in the historic district. The good thing about it is that even though the legislation is much more wider than what currently is for additional dwelling unit, the historic review process will still remain the same. It does not change our review procedure. It's just that the limitations might have to be flexible. So maybe we would talk with Dan Besson, who is our planning administrator. He has done a similar presentation to Plans Review Subcommittee. He plans to do one at the Historical Commission. If you are interested, I can let him know and he can come to you and do a presentation so you know exactly what is going on.
Thank
That is
you.
all update I can give to you. If you're interested, he'll be more than willing to, maybe at your next meeting, we can schedule him to do a quick presentation to you to tell you what the state law is, what the city is doing to accommodate that. We have not seen any application for any additional dwelling unit in the Air Presidio, but they are happening in other historic districts. So maybe a good thing to know. And I don't know whether there will even be any in Air Presidio, but if it were to happen, that after January 21st, January 2025, the new law will set in.
Very good. Thank you. And thanks to everybody for attending.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
So the meeting is adjourned at 6:53.